Hola amigos, welcome back to the channel. It's Parrish here. Today's topic, we're going to talk about financing property in Mexico. A very frequently asked question that I'm asked by, by clients, by my followers is it possible to finance property in Mexico? And I'm going to get back to that in a second, but I just want to say thank you to, any new subscribers. I've seen a couple new subscribers in the last couple weeks. I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to this content if you find it resourceful, useful, and it would really help me in boosting this channel, getting this channel out there to more eyes, and would really appreciate that. So quickly, for those that don't know who I am, for the new subscribers, my name is Parrish. Obviously, I about 8 years ago, I sold everything in Canada, moved down to Mexico with 2 suitcases and 0 Spanish. Got involved into a property development business with a good friend of mine, building beach condos in the Yucatan Peninsula. We did a few projects in different areas down in, South Mexico, Merida, Yucatan area, further south of Cancun, also in Mahahual. So I'm basically here now sharing my knowledge, sharing my info with you guys, what I've learned over the years, kind of combining everything into how to purchase property in Mexico. I teach a course also on mastering the Mexican real estate market. If anybody's interested, please leave a comment and I can share more information about that with you. So let's get right into it. Financing property in Mexico. Unfortunately, mortgages do not exist. Traditional type of mortgages like, in Canada or US that you can get on a home or a condo. You can't really get that in Mexico. Foreigners are basically, when I say foreigner, I'm meaning any Canadian, American, European, anybody that's not Mexican obviously is a foreigner, or, sometimes considered or called an expat when people move to a different area. So foreigners are basically, it's essentially a cash market in Mexico. Now I'll get into, there are a few third-party lenders. I'll get into that later in this video, so make sure you stick around. Some third-party lenders that you can work with. But Mexico is essentially a cash market. Now, what a lot of people will do is most buyers will essentially, if you don't have, cash on hand, a few $100,000, you're going to look at, there's a couple options. Now, what you can do, if you own a property, a home or a condo, and you've had it for, quite a few years, you're going to have equity built up into that, right? So you can go see your mortgage broker, your banker, and you can look at what's called a refinance of your property or refinance of your existing property, or basically taking a home equity line of credit. So what you're doing essentially is you're pulling out, say you have you purchased a home for $500,000, let's say 10 years ago, and you've probably paid down maybe, let's say 150,000-ish of that, or maybe let's say 200,000. So you're going to have that built up as equity in your property, where you can pull that out, and then you can use that cash to basically purchase in Mexico. Now that's quite a common option. Most foreigners will do that method, the refinance of an existing property, or take a home equity line of credit, right? So if your home is also paid off, if you're mortgage free, say you have a $500,000 house, well, the bank will basically give you a line of credit secured against your home, and then you can use that cash to basically purchase property in Mexico that you're interested in. So, there's a couple options that way, and it's best to, talk with a mortgage broker or, your bank, whoever you have your mortgage with. And I'd say, probably 80 to 90% of purchasers in Mexico, especially we were seeing a lot of younger generations starting to purchase in Mexico and in their mid 30s, early 40s, etc. So the majority of them obviously don't have a pile of cash that they're sitting on. They will refinance an existing property or take a home equity line of credit, etc., to purchase. And even older people, depending on everyone's situation is different, right? It all depends what you want to do. If you're sitting on a few $100,000, cash, then you may want to use that cash. You may want to use it for something else. But generally, Mexico is a safe investment overall. You're not going to have any issues with that investment or that cash that you're purchasing in Mexico. So some other options that a lot of people, again, it depends on your situation, is you can also work with developers. Now, This is a popular method that if you're buying pre-construction, for example, and I talk about this in my course. I give a few options, and I have a list of also mortgage, basically third-party lenders, some private lenders in Mexico in my course, Mastering the Mexican Real Estate Market. And I'll pin some comments there to my course. I basically dive into these options in great detail and provide some developers that offer direct financing and third-party lenders in Mexico that you can reach out to and discuss, options. So getting back to developer financing, basically every developer will be different. So if you find a property you're interested in, if it's pre-construction or in the construction stage, generally the developers will work with you with a certain down payment. It's typically, depending on the stage of construction, it can be anywhere from 15 to 35, even sometimes 50% down. And then they'll basically work out a payment schedule with you over the construction time, the construction period. So say, an average project, two years or so in Mexico, you'll put a down payment, like I said, 15 to approximately 35 to 50%. And then you'll work out payments over the construction time. And generally there's no interest charge on those payments. So the benefits of this is it gives you some, flexible payment options. You don't have to obviously put everything up front, but you can also, when you're buying pre-construction, the bonus is you have some options, as especially if you're buying pre-construction, the more you put down, the more general of a discount you can get on property in Mexico. We did this, for example, with our clients buying pre-construction. They would put down 35 to 50%. We would give them a discount that reflected that, so it's kind of helping out both parties. So a lot of developers will do that. You just have to talk to them, and you can talk directly to the developer. You obviously, you can work with a realtor, a real estate agent presenting you. You don't need to have one in Mexico. Again, you can work directly with developers and negotiate. Everything is negotiable, right? I always say everything in the world is negotiable when it comes, especially to making deals or anything that's involved with obviously money. So another benefit to buying pre-construction that a lot of people don't know or don't realize is the ability to generally select your finishing options. So when you're buying, for example, a condo or a home that's finished, you don't get really any choices. You're basically buying what you see, and if you want to modify some things after and spend your own money, you're more than welcome to. But with a condo that is either being built or pre-selling stage, you're able to select usually certain finishing options such as tile flooring, countertops, and cabinets. A lot of the interior finishes, you can generally work with a developer, and they usually have a catalog or set options that you can pick from. So basically you're allowed to customize. Not all developers do this in Mexico. Some are very stingy and picky, but there are a few that will work with clients and try to make them as happy as they can. So that's an added bonus when you're buying pre-construction and working directly with a developer on financing. They'll generally let you pick your finishing options. All right, and then one other option, as I mentioned earlier, and thank you guys if you've made it this far. Please like and subscribe if you find this content helpful. I really love it and appreciate that. So third-party lenders. There are a couple, there's more than a couple, third-party lenders in Mexico. Some that I've referred clients to in the past, they're almost like their own bank. They work with, lenders of such, and it's basically like a mortgage for your, for a property in Mexico, especially if you don't have a home in Canada or US to refinance. This is an option. It's not really a last resort option. It depends on person situation, right? So you work directly with them. And I'll give you a couple names here, and I go over this in more detail in my online course as well. But I've referred a few clients to Mexlend and Cross-Border Investments. Mexlend and Cross-Border Investments, CBI. And there's a few more. Moxie is another one that I'm just starting to kind of consult with as well. And but yeah, you can generally reach out to them. They have different payment terms, different down payments. Again, it depends on your situation. obviously it would take into your credit history as well, and assets and liabilities, etc. But that is something you can go over with them, especially if you don't have a home or a property that you're sitting with some equity on. This is kind of an option for, a lot of people, their dream is to live or retire, in Mexico, and some people do whatever it takes, and this is a good option, Mexlend or cross-border investments for anyone that's interested. So that's kind of it, guys. I hope that made a little sense, and things clear on how to buy property in Mexico and some of the options that are available to you. Again, if you found this informative, please like and subscribe as well. Share it with your friends. I'd appreciate that completely, and honestly, totally would be great and awesome. And we'll see you on the next video. Cheers.